Iran and Israel, two of the Middle East's most ferocious rivals, seem to be escalating their long-running and undeclared shadow war. Iran has accused Israel for an unexplained explosion that cut off electricity at its Natanz uranium enrichment plant over the weekend. Although Israel has not publicly confirmed to being behind the act of sabotage described by Iran, US and Israeli media sources report that Mossad, Israel's foreign intelligence organization, was involved. Iran claims that they will retaliate at any time of their choosing. This isn't a one-off occurrence. It follows a pattern of hostile, back-and-forth measures by both governments as they escalate their covert war, while being cautious so far to avoid a full-fledged battle that would be devastating to both countries. So, what are the dangers, and what is the most probable outcome? Three main fronts may be identified in this shadow war. First, the Iranian nuclear program. Israel is skeptical of Iran's repeated claims that its nuclear program is completely civil and non-violent. According to Israeli intelligence, Iran is covertly working on the development of a nuclear bomb and the means to deliver it via a ballistic missile. There is no threat in the Middle East that is more severe, more deadly, or more urgent than that presented by the fanatical government in Iran, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday during a visit from US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Tzipy Hotovely, Israel's ambassador to London, told the BBC on Monday that Iran has never stopped attempting to acquire nuclear weapons and missiles capable of delivering them. Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons endangers the whole world. With this concept in mind, Israel has been conducting a series of secret, unilateral, and undeclared measures to delay or cripple Iran's nuclear development for a long time. These include the use of a computer virus known as Stuxnet, which was originally identified in 2010 and rendered Iran's centrifuges inoperable. A number of top Iranian nuclear experts died in unexplained circumstances during this century, and then Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was assassinated outside Tehran in November 2020. He was not only Iran's top nuclear technical expert, but also a senior member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, IRGC, and Israel accused him of overseeing Iran's covert military nuclear program. That initiative has progressed to a potential dangerous level. Iran and a group of international powers known as the P5+1, the United States, United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, and Germany, reached a long-term agreement on its nuclear program in 2015. In exchange for the removal of crippling economic sanctions, Iran promised to limit its sensitive nuclear activity and let foreign inspectors in. Here's how the program, properly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was intended to function. 1. Uranium enrichment is limited. The JCPOA only authorized the government to construct 5,060 of the oldest and least effective centrifuges until 2026 at Natanz. This 10-year-long agreement's implementation day was in January 2016. 2. Plutonium heavy water reactors. Under the JCPOA, Iran agreed to rebuild the reactor so that it could not create weapons-grade plutonium and to export all spent fuel as long as the redesigned reactor was operational. Iran must also refrain from building any new heavy water reactors or stockpiling heavy water until 2031. 3. Inspection of nuclear power plants. Iran also committed to adopt the additional protocol to its IAEA Safeguards Agreement, which authorizes inspectors to visit any location in Iran they find suspicious. Iran will have 24 days to comply with any IAEA access request until 2031. 4. Military ballistic technology ban. Iran has agreed to keep a UN prohibition on conventional weaponry imports and exports in place until 2020. Import restrictions on ballistic missile technology will be in effect until 2023. 5. Sanctions are lifted. Sanctions imposed in the past cost the government more than $160 billion in oil earnings between 2012 and 2016. US President Donald Trump has pulled out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, calling it defective in its core. All US sanctions on Iran were reinstated by him. Iran saw its economy plunge into recession and the value of its currency fall to record lows, which in turn caused inflation to soar to the highest level in decades. However, in 2018, when President Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the agreement, slapping draconian sanctions on Iran, Iran has responded by gradually violating the terms of the agreement, most notably enriching uranium. This chemical element, beyond the authorized limits, may be utilized for nuclear energy or perhaps weapons. Afterwards, Joe Biden replaced Donald Trump as US President. President Joe Biden wants to bring the United States back into the agreement, but only if Iran complies fully. No, we don't trust you. Iran is essentially saying, you go first. Once the penalties are eliminated, we will fully comply. Negotiators from a number of nations are gathering in Vienna to attempt to break the stalemate. However, Israel believes that the nuclear accord, in its existing shape, is not worth renewing. Recent Israeli measures, according to Dr. Michael Stevens, a Middle East specialist at the Royal United Services Institute in London, are a deliberate effort to disrupt nuclear talks. The Israelis are attempting to attack Iran's nuclear program all on their own. Their technical abilities may sound impressive on paper, but it is still a big risk. First, these Israeli actions may jeopardize the United States' negotiation position as it tries to re-enter the Iran nuclear agreement. Second, Iran may seek to react by launching asymmetric assaults against Israeli interests across the globe. Israel has shown its ability to prevent Iran's nuclear program, but what will this cost them? The second main front is the maritime transport. Strange things have lately occurred at sea. The MV Helios, an Israeli-owned cargo ship, was seriously damaged while crossing the Gulf of Oman earlier this year. 2 massive holes were blasted in her hull, prompting Israel to accuse Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Iran has denied any participation in the incident. The Saudis, an Iranian ship moored in the southern Red Sea, experienced hull damage in April, which was thought to be caused by limpet mines. According to Israel and the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen, the Saudis is serving as a logistics mothership for Iran's Houthi allies in Yemen. On board are speedboats, machine guns, and sophisticated communication aerials. But Iran claims it is there for peaceful, lawful reasons and accuses Israel for the assault. According to US media sources, Israeli troops have attacked at least 12 ships destined for Syria, carrying Iranian oil and military equipment, during the last 18 months. Now the last of the main front, Syria and Lebanon. Because Syria has been at war inside its own borders for the last 10 years, focus has shifted away from Israeli military activity there. Assad's working in unison with Iran's Lebanese allies, Hezbollah, permitted a massive influx of Iranian military advisors from the IRGC to support Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. In certain situations, Iranian IRGC soldiers have approached the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights within a short distance of the border. Israel has been disturbed by Iran's delivery of precision-guided rockets and missiles to its proxies within striking distance of Israeli cities. It has launched repeated air attacks against these missile facilities and supply lines in Syria, with Iran's reaction so far being little. Conclusion: this shadow war's central theme is brinkmanship. Neither side can afford to seem weak, but both Iran and Israel are aware that their actions must be precisely calibrated in order to avoid a full-scale conflict. On the nuclear front, it is apparent that Israeli intelligence has penetrated Iranian security to a remarkable degree, using both human operatives on the ground and cyber weapons to defeat Iranian defenses. Israel has a geographical disadvantage when it comes to marine transportation. Its own naval base at Eilat provides decent access to the Red Sea, but Iran has the upper hand farther afield, with to its lengthy Gulf coastline and Houthi allies in Yemen. Iran can always use its proxies in Syria and Lebanon to undertake missile attacks against Israel, but this is exceedingly dangerous. Israel has made it plain how serious it intends to respond and where it will strike. Iran. According to John Rain of the International Institute for Strategic Studies, Israel's superior intelligence capabilities compel Iran to depend on bare responses via its proxies. Unfortunately for Iran, Hezbollah is its greatest partner for attacking Israel, but it would be an escalatory act that would ensnare Hezbollah in a conflict Iran wishes to avoid. The Iranians generally have the asymmetric edge, but they are outboxed by Israel. The Israelis have a greater range and quicker footwork, and they strike harder when they strike bluntly, as they have in Syria. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Let us know your opinions in the comments below. Until next time.